First off, Charlie Huffman. He says, how about how you can plot 5 or 6 stories in books? He means, how can I keep so many plots going in my head? As I said downstairs, I like to compartmentalise. I like to have several things on the go at once because it keeps them fresh. I like to move between them. So in fact, having 5 or 6 stories or books, Charlie, at one go is much better for me than having one, because I can flip between them. If I stay on one thing for too long, i.e. a day, maybe 2 days, it gets terribly stale. But if I can move from one to another, that's brilliant. So that's probably one of the explanations of why I'm so ridiculously prolific. John McClane. John McClane. Shouldn't you be in the Nakatomi building? Really? At Christmas with no shoes on? I don't know. Where do you write best? Do you have any rituals or practices, says John, to help you focus? What's your first story about? Do you have any personal projects going? Where do I write best? Well, as I was saying earlier, essentially at my desk downstairs as long as I've got room to pace, but anywhere as long as I've got this baby. Oh, I need to put it in frame apparently, look. Laptop. My lappy here on this chaise, on that chaise over there behind the camera where you can't see it, that chair over there. Out in the long gallery through to the picture wing of the museum, then out into the turrets, the cupolas, the battlements, then off to the left onto the beach where we have the conservatory obviously, then the landing strip, the airfield, the conning tower, and beyond that into the submarine pens, all of which are great to work in. Do I have any rituals or practices to help you focus? Well yes, the first one is to find a map of this bloody building and work out where the hell I'm meant to be. I have certain rituals, simple ones. One is I'm always horrified to discover if I've been working for any length of time at the desk downstairs that I haven't torn off today's calendar. I have a page-a-day calendar and I tear them off and put them in the bin. And if I discover I'm on yesterday's page, I'm often very wrong-footed and I have to start again. It was 1980s, the first story I ever wrote professionally. I've written many stories before that. But the first story I ever wrote professionally was when I was a junior editorial assistant at Marvel in London in about 1987. That's when I started there, so probably late 87, early 88. I wrote an Action Force, that's G.I. Joe story on spec about Footloose, who's the infantryman character, the Scottish infantryman, but weirdly, of course, infantry characters have followed my career all the way through and have been very good to me, so maybe there was something very prophetic about that. Little 5 or 6 page strip, I can't remember how many pages it was. I sold it to Richard Starkings, who was my boss, my editor, now the guru of comic craft, the greatest letterer in the world. Richard took it, subbed it, showed me what I should be doing, but bought it. It was drawn by Brian Hitch in one of his first ever gigs, and that was my starting point for writing for them. I spent many months, indeed years, writing Action Force, that's G.I. Joe, Thundercats, Transformers, Ghostbusters. I wrote an immeasurable amount of Ghostbusters, Galaxy Rangers, Care Bears, Thomas the Tank Engine, that kind of stuff. Ghostbusters was the big one. That was the one I was assistant editor on at the time. It was the biggest comic in the UK at the time. It was selling 200,000 copies a week. And I was Egon Spengler. I wrote Spengler's Spirit Guide, which was a weekly column about spooks, and I wrote 150 plus weekly columns for that. It was my first big gig, as it were. It's the first, you know, in the early years of my career, it was the first thing I looked back on and went, wow, that's an incredible amount of stuff under your belt. Most of it was written in-house, and it was back in the days at Marvel UK where we had Andy Lanning and Liam Sharp and Brian Hitch and David Braithwaite and Simon Colby and Anthony Williams and Dave Elliott and people coming in every day as freelancers. We were on staff with John Tomlinson, Steve White, Richard Starkings, Simon Furman. I'm forgetting so many people, but that incredible melting pot of people that was working around as freelancers, bouncing ideas off each other. That's where I met Andy, John Carnell. John Carnell's the obvious person that I was missing out there. John Carnell coming in, John and Andy doing Ghostbusters, and I was editing their stories. Amazing time, really quite amazing. Do you have any personal projects going? Yes, I do have personal. I have many personal projects going. First of all, it depends. Define your terms. Personal projects. There are certain projects that I'm working on that are so personal to me. It doesn't matter what they are. Gaunt's Ghosts. is so personal to me. Sinister Dexter for 2000 AD, working on Guardians of the Galaxy and Nova for Marvel has become so personal to indulge in that cosmic universe with me and Andy Lanning, and it's a very important thing for me. But in terms of truly personal projects, I have to say that I've signed a 3-book deal with HarperCollins with Angry Robot, which is their imprint, science fiction imprint, to write 3 science fiction books over the next sort of couple of years, really. The first is out this autumn. I've talked about it earlier on when I was downstairs, but anyway, the first is out this autumn. It's called Triumff, and it's an alternate history fantasy, swashbuckling fantasy set in an Elizabethan present day where magic has taken over from technology, and I think is extremely exciting and rather funny. After that, I'll follow it up with a piece of incredibly hard-boiled combat SF called Embedded, which will be written by January 1. Actually, that's when it's going to be finished by. That'll be more like the sort of things that my 40k readers are familiar with, but ferociously high-tech battlefield stuff. And I've got so many ideas for that. I can't wait to get it on paper. So both of those I'm very excited about. The third one will be whatever the third one will be.